Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us for a few minutes out of your day today. Super excited to welcome Shad Ross, the Assistant Director of Auxiliary Services at a university. Shad is joining us, and why don't you introduce yourself a little more, Shad?
Sure. So my name is Shad Ross. Like you said, I'm the Assistant Director of Auxiliary Services for a unnamed university. Um, and in my part-time, I am a creator, I am a full-time geek, and I am big into the AI movement.
A full-time geek. I love it. There
Yes.
needs to be more of us, right?
Right. I think we're taking over the world at this
Yeah,
point.
we
So
totally are taking over the world. Watch out. And it is a great time to be a full-time geek. Probably in the last 6 to 8 months with the explosion of ChatGPT. Now AI has been around, but ChatGPT and everyone kind of being able to play around with it has kind of put everybody in this like, whoa, there's something new, something big that's coming. And it's just a great time to be a geek.
I think it's fascinating. It's really brought it into the mainstream and getting people to talk more about it. And the more it's used, the better off we are. The more it learns, and so more and more people need to jump on board.
Yeah. To structure our conversation today, Shad, I think it's important. I think there's probably two swim lanes where we could go. So, first is like use of AI as an operator in food service or just kind of in your role in a job, in any role, in any job that you may have. Like, what tools, what are things out there, AI, that can help increase capacity, productivity, professionalism, everything there, right? And then, like, let's introduce maybe a few variations and let's start to ruminate on some ideas of actual products, services, and uses of AI in the experience of our guest experience for food service. And you think that those are two good swim lanes?
I think those are two great swim lanes, and I think it shows that there can be an impact. Obviously, we're a little bit more food centered, but it's going to have an impact on everything. In particular, in my position, so as far as food goes, we've included ChatGPT into incorporating menu boards and creating calendars for our year-round programs. Um, it will help you break down recipes and give you the whole format. And instead of having a marketing person that's kind of dedicated to that, you can have ChatGPT knock it out in just about no time. And then you can make tweaks to what you want. This
Yeah.
is strictly a tool for improving what you've already got online. We're also looking at programs like the AI baristas that are coming online. I don't know if you're familiar with the Atom project out in Las Vegas and the food industry that they're doing there. Um, but we're looking at potentially bringing on AI baristas onto campus. I think it's a good fit for AI because a barista is such a exact science that you can freeze them up and you bring in the spectacle along with just a good cup of coffee. Um, we're looking at AI even in recycling programs. So there are now AI trash cans
Yeah.
that, as you're depositing trash, are taking pictures of it and will sort it for you to make sure that your recycling programs are online and where they need to be.
Yeah.
So I think all kinds of doors are being thrown open currently for incorporating AI.
Well, let's have a little fun here with ChatGPT because I think that's where everyone's probably most familiar.
Right.
So, surprise question: do you have a favorite prompt whenever you use ChatGPT to get information or answers?
Let's see. So it depends kind of on what my intent is, obviously. When I'm at work and I'm working as a professional, a lot of times I'm using the act as a marketing professional or act as,
Yes.
anything like that. But in the it can get a lot more free flowing in the personal projects and stuff because I'm not restricted under regulations, and those prompts can be. It's amazing what you can open it up to do. I've got a side project I'm working on where I've asked it to act as an old radio show writer. So the serial radio shows from back like in
Yeah.
the 30s and stuff. And it's amazing the collaboration that you can get between you and this machine now at this point.
That's fantastic. So you like the act as, and then you can put like a professional role, act as a marketing or a brand.
Right.
director, a creative, and it'll start thinking that way.
Yes.
One of my personal favorites that I have to use a lot because I'll go to ChatGPT for things that I don't understand. I'm like, here's a topic, explain it to me as if I'm 10 years old.
Yes.
And it breaks it down. It gives me the analogies. I'm like, okay, now I feel like I'm an expert on this.
Have you used the 80/20 format for that?
No, no, what's that?
So you can as I said, I'm a geek and I'm interested in any information. So one of my favorite things to do now is I will give it a subject and I will say, give me the knowledge of 80% of this subject and 20% that I can use to know it immediately. And it will study the entire field and then
Yeah.
basically break it down into the 20% need to know to be an expert. And I love that because it's basically cliff notes on whatever you want to ask
Whatever
it
it is.
about. It's
The
amazing,
80/20 rule has another application. I love it. I'm
right?
writing that one down. It's like it's becoming just the best icebreaker. So to our listeners, this summer as we're hitting all the conferences and shows, if you meet someone, maybe just ask them what's their favorite Chat GPT prompt, or maybe their favorite Chat
Exactly.
GPT experience. I know Mother's Day, happened a few months ago, but I actually sat down and engaged. I was like, all right, pretend you're a
Right.
loving son, but maybe a little slow and haven't done a good job on getting amazing Mother's Day gifts. My budget's $20. No, like
Right.
give it a budget and then start like working. You have maybe my mother likes, these types of things. And I actually, in about 10 minutes, came up with like three brilliant ideas for Mother's Day that I was able to execute on. And I looked like an absolute stud of a son.
Right.
Finally got there.
Perfect.
Finally got there.
We all need a little coaching sometimes to reach our
Yeah.
max. Uh,
Yeah.
but I think that's what's great about it, though, is that at this point, my favorite, if you ask what my favorite prompt is, my favorite prompt is whatever expert I need, because that's really what Chat GPT is now. So
Yeah.
the other day, asked it to act as a personal life coach and create a morning routine for me for the next 90 days to improve mental clarity and physical fitness.
Yeah.
And in no time, it had daily affirmations. It had routines for me to go through on meditation. It had a workout routine. I mean,
Yeah.
it's whatever you need, and you tailor make it for your needs and to suit you and your happiness. It's perfect.
And to people who are out there who may be just a little scared and feel like this is totally new, there's an element of novelty to it. There's some
Sure.
advancing technology that's being brought to it. But really, if you look at the past, let's say search has been around for like 25, 30 years. Search essentially indexed the internet and then provided links or cards like links about everything that was happening on the internet. That was kind of the display response to the questions. You'd go to Google, ask a question, and then you would get links back. And the novelty around like a Chat GPT, this type of language learning model that we're seeing here is it's much the same. It's taken to the next level because it can parse out and identify information, but it's essentially engagement and presenting that information, the intelligence, in a way that's just a little different than indexed links where you would have to then go search and read those web pages for yourself. I think it's exciting. Thrilled about what it can do for productivity, for empowerment of employees, creativity, and I'm super excited to see over the next few years what happens in food services products and especially technologies now are kind of forced to put into their roadmaps. How are we going to leverage, new technology like AI?
Right.
And you're seeing it. So the AI barista, the Atom Project.
Love it.
Introduce us. Yeah, what's going on there?
So basically, like I said, any food application where it's more science than it is feeling when you're cooking, I think there's huge opportunities for AI right now. Barista being one of them. You need exact temperatures, you need exact measurements, you need it to be the same every time, and so. Still the human aspect. You have to set up the station. If you're bringing in a robot, you have to bring in a technician to use that robot. So I think part of it is also people talk about the job displacement. Um, I don't see there being a job displacement. I see this being more of this is us going from keyboards to computers. This is us going from Microsoft Suite. That this is just the next step in the evolution of how you use a tool to make your job better. But you're still in control of that tool. So the baristas, you still set up, you still do everything, but you don't have to have an hourly employee standing there that you're worried about calling out or having personal issues or having an off day.
Yeah.
You can guarantee your product. And in certain situations, like I said, it's the spectacle of increasing your sales because you do have a robot that's making a good cup of coffee and people just want to see it in action. So I think there's multiple layers of benefits in some of this in the food industry of the draw, the perfection of it, and how do you incorporate that without getting rid of the human element?
Absolutely. So, in the swim lane of guest experience and products and technologies that are going to impact, the things that are done for our customers, yeah, this barista is perfect because you do need specific temperatures, ingredients. The easy to think. How do I say it? Like the non things that don't require like a professionally classically trained chef. Doing
Right,
things like
right.
we can just put it together and let a chef or sorry, let a robot go to town and create some awesome beverages.
Right. And again, back to the human element of things, the human element that you still need, people come to see the robot make a cup of coffee. But a human standing there to ring that up can upsell you the pastry that goes with it and the
Right?
experience that goes. I mean, you're there, there's always things that the human element and the human connection makes an experience better. So
Yeah.
I don't by any means to think people think I want technology to take over. I just want to incorporate it.
I think in automated vending is such a huge trend right now. It feels like every show there's new products, new companies that are coming with an automated vending, a robot of sorts that's empowered doing AI to kind of impact both the labor force and make that easier to provide really good customer experience. That's awesome.
I think a lot of people just want the convenience and the ease of having to do it. And I think COVID changed a lot of things for a lot of people where um, people were trying to get away from the human interaction.
Yeah.
And so the combination of the timing of things, I think, opened up a lot of doors for it to be more comfortable for people to hand over a little bit more of that.
Yeah, for sure. You also mentioned you mentioned a lot of things, but the sustainability with the trash cans is something
Sure.
we have to call out. So this just sounds awesome. So teach, explain. What are you seeing there?
So in cafeteria style settings, oftentimes, especially in larger universities or larger corporations, your sustainability and your recycling program takes a lot of human effort. There has to be somebody to make sure that you're sorting things correctly, that things are going in and they're being cleaned correctly. A lot of people think that if you say I'm going to have this recycled, 100% of everything that you throw in there is recycled and made good and the earth is saved. And
Yeah.
I wish that were true, but the percentage of things that are actually recycled are drastically reduced a lot of times due to human error because they've put it in the wrong container or they haven't washed it properly and stuff like that. And so what we're seeing are these new systems that come out. And as you deposit a piece of trash into the top, it goes into one receptacle where it is scanned, photographed, recognized by the AI, and then sorted into the proper bins to make sure that it's always done. It's then weighed so that you can also look at what you're actually saving and tracked and gives you data so that you're able to represent um, the impact that you're actually having on the environment, how much you're actually able to save and stuff like that. So I think that's a huge benefit and a way for it to be enacted that's a benefit for the earth as well as the
Yeah.
situation. It's great.
For sustainability purposes, that's phenomenal. That's fantastic. That's a fancy trash can.
It is. But again, in certain cafeterias, if you can make throwing your trash away an experience, uh, that's a huge win because I've never been excited about dropping off my trash before. But the first time I did it in one of these and got to see it in action and stuff, it's really cool. And it even has a heads up display on the front, a little LCD screen, so that you can see what you've thrown away, how it was sorted, what your impact on the environment
Oh, that's
is.
cool.
Some of them have like the old eco leaf
Yeah,
flower that blooms when
yeah.
you do a good job.
Oh, there you go. Without dating and without dating myself too much, I sometimes struggle in the recycling because a lot of these recycling areas, when I go to dispose after eating, I'm not quite sure which one to put
Right,
it in, and it
right,
tries to educate me. But you'd think I'd have this by now. But I'm like, well, wait a minute, is this compost? Compost
right.
should be easier, but like, is this plastic? Is this paper? Like I sometimes struggle and like it's embarrassing, but sometimes I'll just put it all in one. I'm like, hopefully you can figure it out.
And I think a lot of people do. And human nature, at least you have the concern of actually looking and trying to figure it out. A lot of people are just going to walk up and throw it in without even having a thought about it. So this
Right.
takes out the need for there to be any thought on your part and allows you to still be a participant in making things better.
That's awesome. And then there's a data component. So
Sure.
how does the data work on these recycling bins?
So as it sorts things out, it is also on a weighted system. So each bin will tell you how much styrofoam, plastic you've collected that day in pounds, grams, however you said it. How much food waste. So if you're
Okay.
running a big food program, one of the big things that I was interested in is a lot of these systems now will weigh out your actual food waste. So you know if your
Interesting.
portion sizes are too large, if your food's not liked, how much are you wasting a day? It's great to know how much you're selling, but how much is being wasted out of that
Yeah.
sell? I think it's important information that people to have in order to run your business the proper way.
Absolutely. And all the listeners out there, they're able to connect the dots and see how this impacts the financial,
Sure.
operation of their program. They're seeing it all put together. And it's probably a good time right now to introduce this idea of it's called in AI, a variation strand of AI is a language learning model. And they're called LLMs. And for this may be new to some of our listeners, but the way I would describe it is: imagine if you had a friend who spoke lots of languages and could translate any word that you asked that friend to translate. Now think about how this friend learned these languages. It was by reading many books. They were involved in lots of conversations. Maybe they traveled to those countries. And they also had just a lot of repetition and a lot of practice. So over time, this friend is able to get better and better at understanding the types of questions that are coming in and the answers that are best going to help the individual who's asking those questions. A language learning model is that strand of AI that is very similar to this friend. You have all sorts of data from inventory management to financial, you have point of sale data. You got your menus and menu management systems. It looks like now you've got with sustainability, there's all this data. And I think being able to manage all of that data in one repository or put it into one place with AI that sits on top of it, if it's a language learning model, now you've got this super smart friend who's learning everything about your point of sale transactions, about your food waste, about your ordering process. And so the questions that you ask this friend, this language learning model, is going to be very unique and very specific, very helpful. It's like having the absolute genie on your shoulder that knows everything about your operation. And I think what's exciting, to see, hopefully we get there as some of these products kind of evolve into the future, is just how smart and how fast and how wise you'll be able to operate your program with the assistance of AI.
And I think we've seen a huge increase, like you said, over the past 6 to 8 months. The amount of people actually using Chat GPT is growing
Yeah.
exponentially every day. And that's incredible because that's how it gets better. It continues to learn, it continues to get better. If I'm being honest, my biggest fear with a lot of these is that you talk about the downfall of AI is the fact that we have used its main base of knowledge as the internet, which we have, as humans, have corrupted and manipulated for a long time now with false data and inaccuracies. And so when people talk about the biggest problems with AI, the biggest problems with AI are still the human nature and the human aspect of it, and the fact that we have polluted its source of information so poorly up until this point that we've got to overcome that.
Yeah, like that. I don't know if I'm a doomsday guy. I think it can. I think there's some challenges for sure, but data management and data integrity is absolutely vital to the success of some of these technologies, and that's actually for me like super helpful when we're talking to customers. It quickly turns into I like having conversations around their own data management. They have
Right.
all these sources of data, and how able are they to pull it all into one, if it's one system, or how quickly can they access the information so that they're empowered to make better decisions to run their programs. And I think like in the ideal world, you start to see operators and owners of these food service locations start to really prioritize like, hey, I want access to all my data. I'd like it to be in this place because I want a language learning model that sits on top of it that can help me. I can quickly look at when we served pizza the other day, what was our sales? What was our food waste? What was our costs? And like, let's start to tweak and optimize. You bring in other data points like, demographics and sociographics around our customers and the trends that they're seeing in the world, right? So, how do we tweak and optimize our recipes based on all of this information so that we can do better and be more profitable, more successful of a program? It's fascinating
And
to me. So data
I,
management, I think people need to become
yeah,
experts at data management because, yeah, I just think it's critical.
I agree. This is your chance to know your business better than you've ever known it before because you don't have to be an expert in every field. You can act as an expert that you need. And it also allows you the ability to be able to analyze like you've never been able to analyze before. Hopefully, it gets to the point where you can just be real honest with it, though, and be like, okay, I need you to act as a small business owner of a restaurant that has rent due on Friday, and no
Right?
sales, and give me a plan to be successful. That's the end goal for everybody, I think.
I mean, just imagine like I've got this location. It's fully staffed with 6 employees. Today I have 3. What changes to the menu do I need to make so that 3 employees can appropriately manage the day and
Yes.
we can be profitable, as much as possible. And you're able to get that information quickly, make the adjustments, and everything can kind of keep those trains moving forward.
Yes, I agree with that. I think one of the issues I have with it so far is I think it's important that you said it is a language learning model because a lot of times I don't know about your experience with it so far, but if I try to incorporate math into Chat GPT, it gives some um, less than stellar answers
Sure,
sometimes.
sure.
And I think that's where the layering of some of these systems comes in handy so that
Yeah.
you can stack them and get the best results out of stuff.
Well, I'm waiting for the day when there's Chat GPT, but I'd love to see a language learning model, an AI that is specifically built for food service that allows operators to kind of connect the plumbing of all their data sources, bring it all into one ecosystem where that empowered operator can then just do incredible things in a matter of seconds and not have to be expert at all the different technologies, but just
Right.
they can just play ball and they can play to win. And I think it's coming. I really do think it's coming.
I do. I agree. And I think the immediate benefits for a lot of small business owners and stuff like that is the fact that, if you struggle with the basics of you make great food, but you don't know how to market your great food on a menu,
Yeah.
some of the menu descriptions coming out of Chat GPT, you can't beat as far as making
They're
you
pretty
want
good,
to
huh?
try the
Yeah.
food and stuff. And so creating your menus in a marketable way without having to have a marketing degree is just so much easier now.
I mean, yeah, so let's transition there. So, we talked about LLMs, these language learning models. There's another kind of DNA strand of AI that is called generative AI. And if I was to describe this how I did, I'd probably just say like generative AI is about creating new content, using technology to create new things, whether that's text for like a menu description, whether that's images for pictures that need to go on a menu board or templates for a menu board. Generative AI is about the creation of content and the technology that can just quickly kind of create those things. So I'm going to ask you about menu boards because I know you kind of mentioned it earlier, but the idea that I could sit down with is being able to log into use a technology and say, all right, I've got, you know, I'm simple pizza and French fries on the menu. Can you get me a picture of pizza or a hamburger and French fries?
Yep.
And then you get that picture, it just quickly pops up, and you're like, okay, well, can you make the tomatoes smaller? Can
Right.
you show some ketchup? Can you make the French fries crinkle cut instead of another kind of French fry, right? And as you're just kind of editing in real time, it is creating this image to your exact specifications that then you can quickly go out and use in a marketing campaign. Whether that be in
Exactly.
Nutrislice or somewhere else, right?
And I think one of the benefits of it is so like for me, especially when it comes to food, I'm big on only using pictures of food that I have created because I don't want that McDonald's not to
Yeah.
talk bad about anybody, but I don't want to drive up anywhere and see a picture and then be handed something that's totally different.
Yeah.
Um, but I also know that I'm not a photographer.
Yeah.
Um, but what I can do now, I can take a picture with my cell phone, load it up to Playground AI. I can adjust the lighting by speaking to it. I can adjust the depth of field by speaking to it. I don't have to be a photographer anymore. I can still use accurate pictures of my own food, but have it displayed in a way that would cost me hundreds of dollars in a marketing campaign. And I don't have to
Absolutely.
do
It's
that.
just quickly done, right? So
It's
now,
done. It's, yeah.
we talk about how AI, the other swim lane we wanted to chat about is how AI can impact our own day-to-day jobs. And if you're a marketing person, now you're given a set of tools that allow you to just blow it out of the water and be incredible and efficient and quick, and it's just amazing.
Yes, especially, I mean, it will allow you to schedule all of your posts. It'll post to all of your platforms at one time, the same content. It keeps consistency. It keeps accuracy, and it, if done the right way, frees up a lot of time for you to actually
Absolutely.
focus on the parts of your business that you probably enjoy more.
So when you talk about marketing, I hint about marketing or menu boards. Talk a little more about that and how just down the strand of marketing, how are you using? What are you doing? Yeah.
So one of my favorite prompts is act as a marketing expert and then feed it as much of the demographics for your situation as you possibly can. For my campus, I'm able to feed it where I'm at, what my daily allotment of people is on campus, what the diversity makeup is of those employees and everything, because we're pulling all of our data from everywhere we can across campus and feeding it into this to create meal plans that will appeal to the most people on campus at a time.
Yeah.
So it's marketing, it's incorporating the, you know, you every day has a national food day today. Today's no telling what it is. There's probably seven of them that
There's
I can't
something.
keep up with, right? But you can tell it to go out and look for stuff like that and build in specials for you that you don't have to sit there and research. And if you keep that conversation going in Chat GPT, which is another important thing that I think don't think a lot of people utilize enough, is don't restart that conversation. Keep that conversation
Keep it
going so
going.
that it can refer back and keeps learning from that conversation. You can teach it to recognize food holidays that are important for your campus based on your ethnic buildup of
Yeah.
your corporation or whatever, and it just helps things be more personal.
Absolutely. Specific to the menu board, do you use for the images and the pictures? You create a lot of your own imagery that way.
We create a lot of our own imagery that way. I use it as a tool. So I also aside from the food aspect, I also run the print shop on campus. And so I have two graphic designers that I work with on a pretty consistent basis. And I like the human aspect of that, but I have started using Midjourney in particular as a tool for me. I can go home at night and tell Midjourney what I want and get an idea so that then when I go to my graphic artist, I'm showing them a picture of what I want instead of trying to write a word picture for them,
Uh-huh.
which I think AI is better at than humans at interpreting what you're wanting from that. And so it
Obviously.
gives me the ability to spend a short amount of time describing what I want, tweaking what I want, and then going to my team of human beings and saying, give me
Perfecting it.
something like this, and this is the vein we want to use it in.
Absolutely brilliant. I love it. You had talked a little bit about recipes. I'm not sure what you're doing there, but I have to ask, like, is AI impacting recipe development or?
Yes. Um, so I kind of went down an AI rabbit hole one day, and I had asked for it to create a food menu for me for the quarter based on all of the food days. You know, National Pizza Day, National Friday, National Artichoke Day, all of this kind of stuff. And it came back and it only gave me, you should serve, and it gave me the name of a sandwich or the name of a hamburger. And they sounded delicious. And I was like, okay, so now give me a recipe for each one of these and tell me what you think that is. And again, went back in and said, act as a food writer for a food magazine, and then break down the recipes and stuff. And tested it in my home kitchen because, you know,
Yeah.
got to make sure the recipe is good. And it's actually very impressive. Now, obviously, I'm a cook at heart, so I tweaked every recipe,
Right.
but it gave me the basis to start off of without me having to put in a lot of thought and allowed me to tweak instead of create, which is a lot less time consuming.
Shad, you are a power user with ChatGPT. This is awesome.
I, I love it. I try to incorporate all kinds of stuff. We use it for training videos. I will feed in a script into ChatGPT and have it edited a little bit, and then I feed that script from ChatGPT into synesthesia.io to
Uh-huh.
create a voiceover and to create a training video format. Um, it gives consistency, and people were asking me why I wanted to do our training videos that way, and it's because it will auto generate a face to that training video that will never be replaced in your company. It's always the
Yeah.
same voice, it's always the same face, nobody's being replaced, and you can update it in 3 minutes to change its entire script, and
Yeah.
it's still going to be the same consistent marketing all the way through.
That's fantastic. Well, I mean, incredible. You had also mentioned inside with your calendaring. I'm not sure where or how this works, but so this is just working internally with different teams, probably scheduling meetings. But how have you seen it? What are you doing?
One of the things that I've started using, I haven't incorporated it into work yet because if we're being honest, there's still that gray area with AI within a lot of corporations where we're trying to form boards and trying to form committees to see what's
What's
allowed, what's not. But one of the ones that I'm testing in my private life that I found very useful is Merlin, and it is a AI that will allow ChatGPT and other AI systems to work with Outlook and to work within your calendar. So it helps be more of that virtual assistant that I'm looking for. But it's free versus the virtual assistants that I really want that I can't afford. So using systems like that to try to incorporate other systems to where I'm not answering junk email anymore. I've trained ChatGPT and Merlin to take care of most of that for me. It always runs it by you for final approval before sending anything out. But like the other day, I couldn't tell if I wrote the email or if ChatGPT did because it had learned so much from me that it even fooled me on whether or not it was my response or not.
So this kind of begs the question here. So do you think if there was an AI powered kitchen that could do all of these things, both working cohesively, making decisions, and then also on the experience being able to make the foods, what is the breakdown? Do you think an AI powered kitchen could run an operation better than an actual human?
I think it depends on what you mean by better. If we're
Okay.
strictly trying to put food out that is going to have the nutritional content and the taste that you want, I think AI can run an extremely successful kitchen. I kind of see this going in the way with RFD tags on all of your inventory in your refrigerator. And as the AI robot pulls things out of the refrigerator based off the RFD tag, it's removing it from your inventory. It's making sure that each one used for each recipe was the amount that needed to come out of that bottle was correct. So you're always making sure that you haven't used too much salt. It would automatically catch stuff like that. I
Mhm.
think in those types of aspects, AI is incredible and can be great. Um, but I've run my own restaurant, and I know that customers a lot of times came in every day to my restaurant because they wanted to talk to my staff
Right.
and they wanted an interaction with their lunch. And AI, to me, will never be able to provide that the same way.
There's that connection, that human to human connection. So, do you think that do you think that if a robot chef cooked a meal, uh, do you think students or customers, guests, could tell the difference between a meal cooked by a robot and that cooked by a human if they didn't know?
I don't know. I'm a firm believer, so I'm also from the South. And I am a firm believer that your intentions and the amount of love that you put into a meal comes through.
Yeah,
Um, and I say that because my mom's pizza is the best pizza in the world,
I love
but
that.
only because I know the amount of care and love that was put into it. So if you ask somebody else about my mom's pizza, they might not like it as much because they don't know that. So I think a lot of that is up to interpretation. I also feel, though, that to me, food still is, when done correctly, is an art form. And I walk into a kitchen sometimes with a recipe, um, but I walk out with a creation. And I don't always follow that recipe to the T because in the moment, that's not what that dish needed. And I don't think AI is capable of that kind of stuff yet.
That's brilliant. I love it. So I think if I'm hearing right, it's kind of like this hybrid model you're suggesting where it's not a robot kitchen or a human kitchen, but it's
A
taking
combination.
the best of what AI and technology can bring to the kitchen to build an incredibly strong foundation, and it many times help kind of advance, make those first efforts. If it's recipe development, it's just getting ideas and those initial recipes, and so it's about laying that foundation and then having the human element really score the touchdown and take it the rest of the way. Provide the face to face,
Yes.
the optimizing that recipe so that it's just perfect. Being able to create those unique experiences that can only come when individuals, humans, are serving and helping other humans and individuals.
Yeah, to me, the perfect example. So I am a foodie and a geek, and I don't know if you remember when Anthony Bourdain went to the French Laundry and was going for like a 7 course meal and was worried that it was 4.5 hours, and he knew he would need a cigarette. And the chef made him a soup that was made from nicotine and tobacco, so that he would get that hit. AI is never going to do that for you. That takes a human element of knowing people and knowing how to make their experiences better that you're just never going to replace. That takes compassion and that takes empathy and that takes knowing someone and how to make their day better. And
That's awesome. That's
I think
awesome.
AI is capable of that kind of stuff, just like your gift for your mother. But you have to tell it what it needs. There has to be that collaboration for it to be successful.
If my mom's listening to this podcast, I'm probably getting a phone call, and maybe I shouldn't have used that example earlier.
She might just be glad that you finally figured it out. My mom would be.
She's just thankful that I got her something good. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's fantastic. Well, Shad, as we start to kind of wind down the conversation, think about the next year, 2, 5 years from now. What it advances with AI? Where do you see the industry going and improving, and what does that look like for you?
um, I think it's going to grow exponentially over the next few years. I think we have barely hit the tip of what this is capable of and how big this explosion is going to be. And I think it's going to start being integrated in ways in people's life that they never expected. One of the things that I'm kind of excited about being in entertainment and stuff is I fully expect there to be a streaming service within the next 5 years where I just go on and describe the movie and my dream cast that I want to see, and 30 minutes later, I'm watching the one of my creation. No
Absolutely.
real actors needed, no nothing. And so I think the ability for people with an imagination and lack of artistic talent, that would be me, um, now have all kinds of new avenues to be able to get out what's always been in their head that they've never had the capabilities of doing before. I think this opens up the doors for a lot of people.
Absolutely. And the follow up to that question, as it progresses and advances, you take the initiative. You're a self starter and learning about these things. Are there groups? Are there resources? Like, what is there anything out there for a novice AI but very interested? How do they get started?
Um, I think there's a couple of different ways. There's a couple of different newsletters that I can't think of off the top of my head that I subscribe to that kind of give updates.
Yeah.
But if we're being honest right now, TikTok is a plethora of information on the newest aspects of AI because it's changing so rapidly that if any of the publications have gotten to you, they're outdated.
Yeah.
You need somebody that's really sitting there filming live going, watch what I'm doing at the moment because it's really starting to move that quick.
That's
Um,
fantastic.
Clubhouse is a great one, though. If you're not a member of Clubhouse social media,
That's a social
um,
network. Yeah.
yeah, social network, and they've got a lot of great groups within Clubhouse that are really on the cutting edge of a lot of different things.
That's awesome. We probably need to start a AI centered food service discussion group where we can just talk about best practices, provide creative ideas, how we're solving problems using some of these newer technologies. I think that probably be a brilliant thing to do.
I'm all for it. We're actually starting an AI rooftop garden at our university. And the reason we're
What?
making it AI is because we want the weather and everything to be monitored by AI, but we're wanting to broadcast it around the world for master gardeners to give their input on what should be done next. So we're using AI to build a community garden and then using it to open that community garden up to the world to make the world a little bit smaller.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Shad Ross, thank you so much for today, joining us today. This is a conversation that we need to have again and again and again into the future. So, as things progressing, we need to stay in touch. I'm going to reach back out to you to get some of these links, the newsletters. We'll provide those in the show notes along with
Perfect.
Shad's contact information. I'm sure lots of people will have some questions for him. Shad Ross, an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us. And to everyone else, we look forward to our next episode of Pass the Tots.